What's going on, YouTube? I'm Ryan Miles here from On Tilt Gaming, and here we have the recent champion of GP Montreal. Came all the way from Europe to smash us low-life Americans. His name is Benjamin Bargetzi. How's it going, Ben?
Good, thanks.
So, you have been playing Force of Will for about a year now, I think it is. Just a very small amount of time compared to some of the old guard like us. So, what got you into Force of Will? What card games were you playing beforehand? What made Force of Will so appealing to you? Is pineapple a pizza topping? Go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I played, I never really played card games, to be honest. I played Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger, like 10 years ago or so. But it was more like, I played like whatever decks. Like I never really made anything big in Yu-Gi-Oh. People just knew me because once in like a bigger competition in Switzerland, I topped with Exodia, which was pretty cool. And with some weird Exodia deck. And but then I dropped card games and I didn't play anything for like 8 years or so.
Wow.
And then actually once I was at my friend's place, and he had Force of Will cards, but he doesn't play, he just collects them because they're beautiful. And he just gave me like, some cards. I built like an Arla, Gwyber, Amino Habakiri deck, and I loved it. So then I went for my first pre-release, which was L2 at that time, like the one with Lilias Petal. And from my boosters plus the prize pool, because I think I made first in this tournament, I had 3 Killing Stones and the ruler of Lilias Petal. So yeah, that was like a sign for me. And yeah, I built my Fox deck and just started playing. And then people at my locals, they first tried other stuff than Fox, and I kept winning them. Actually, the first 2, I think I didn't win them. I came to the finals at least. But then it grabbed me, and then I started playing Force of Will, actually Fox with a Fox meta, which was a kind of funny entrance to the game. And then you said I only play for 1 year, and I think the reason why I got so far in 1 year is just because I played Force of Will excessively. I don't mean I tested endlessly, but I'm only like, I kept watching videos online, also from you, of course, the Fox.
That's the best content out there, so no wonder you're a legend already.
No, and I just watched videos, I watched discussions, I read cards. So I did a lot of actually analytical and theoretical work, right? And that's actually still kind of how I prepare for GPs usually. I just make a lot of theoretical thinking, and then I just test like 2 or 3 days, and then I go for GP. So this kind of like, this sticked throughout all the time that I do a lot of mind work, like in a bus, for example, or when I'm eating, and then actually practice, tests my ideas 3 days before. Like in Montreal, it was 3 a.m. before, and I played without testing, but yeah, that can happen. So yeah, I would say what keeps me in Force of Will is definitely the great game mechanics. It's really great, I think. After I started Force of Will, I played some Magic as well. I play some Hearthstone on my phone, but in general, I just realized everything feels like a worse Force of Will, kind of, which I think is not reflected fairly in the size of the game. Like, I think it should be much bigger, given how good it is.
I completely agree with that. One of the things that I think about Force of Will is I feel like it's just a better core mechanical design than almost any other card game out there, and I feel like every once in a while the actual card design is kind of what holds it back and maybe keeps people out of it when we've had problematic cards in the past. But I feel like the resources being separate from the stone deck kind of thing is what I completely agree. It's just
really
so much better.
And also, the card design is really beautiful. Like, I know that the anime kind of girlish style, those kind of cards keep some people off the game and make it like, weeaboo stuff, blah, blah. But I think, overall, we have a lot of really beautiful cards and designs. I think that's also really a big plus for me.
On that note, what is the most beautiful card in your opinion?
Oh, Jesus, I was not prepared for that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, I really love the new Final Battle, the full art one.
Really?
I really love it.
It's not because Final Battle's broken at all, is it? It's just the card art you like?
I'm just biased because I just love broken cards. No, but let me. I'll maybe get back to it later.
Okay.
It will take time now.
Yeah, no problem.
What's the most beautiful card is like?
It's a big question. I didn't think about it beforehand. I apologize. All right, so moving on to the actual event that just happened, the Shahrazad deck. You said that you built the deck without any testing at 2 or 3 a.m. So I know from talking with you beforehand that you weren't even really sure you were going to play Shahrazad, and then one of the reasons you did play it was because you didn't have the cards for the deck that you really wanted to play. So what deck was that? Why were you going to play that deck? And then if you could go back and, actually have the cards, would you have played that deck? Or do you think that Shahrazad was the right call after all?
So I have to be sure to avoid hindsight bias here, but to be honest, it's like I had first planned. I brought a few cards like for like a Lumia deck mostly, and just some commons I had from R3 and cards for Imul. So I actually like JP, the famous guy from my team. He has like a cool Imul deck, and I just thought about playing this. But then actually he asked me to not spoiler it in Montreal, so I followed that advice. And then I was just being like, a meta sheep and want to play Lumia because I didn't really test that much. But then actually in my testings, like all I was testing was like Freyline, Scarlet Aggro, these kind of things. I just want to play something cool, right? I even tested Ayu more than Lumia or Shahrazad. And basically what happened then is like I found out I cannot really go to Italy because it was like very annoying to get to this GP. So I thought like I just skip it. So basically I stopped testing at one point. And then suddenly I had this idea of traveling in Canada. And then, I remembered, wait, there's a GP in Canada. And so kind of like, I ended up in Canada suddenly without proper testing, just with this idea Lumia is good deck, Imul is a good deck, but kind of I shouldn't play it. So, and then, I just ended up playing Shahrazad. And then I was in the room with these Regalia and Chill guys, and I just built actually decks for them, like just to be nice to them because they let me sleep in their room. So I built them like, a wide Sherry list, a control list with Blazers. I built them a Lumia deck and everything. We played a bit for fun. I still didn't have a deck until forever. And then suddenly when I played, I realized that this actually I didn't even like these decks. I didn't really like this control Shahrazad. I didn't really like this Lumia Shahrazad. So I told this to them as well, but they said they want to play it. And then eventually I remember that in my team, they were once talking about, like some version of Sherry where you just put dolls in, right? But they played like, the 6/6 doll, the 2-drop that buffs something with 200. And I didn't like this one, so I just kicked it out. I thought this 11/11 guy is cool, threw it in, and I just want to play, I was like, if I cannot play aggro because it just loses badly against Shahrazad, I'd just be cool, and I play Shahrazad in an aggro style. And so just 3 AM, I had first a blue list that I tested with Alex Blandin as well, just like some games for fun. And then 3 AM, I threw out the blue, threw in white, and that was my deck. And I honestly, like 3 AM, I just threw together cards. I had 41 cards. I thought it's cool. Next day, I woke up very late because we were out partying as well. So I just took the went for the GP. And actually, like, I mean, it was not like I was super surprised it works well, I mean, I when I build a deck, of course, I have some idea what I'm doing. But that it worked that well was unexpected. I have to be really honest about that. Like, I knew that the doll list is pretty cool because you can put pressure on board, which is good in control meta, obviously. But that it would be that good, I didn't expect it at all. Yeah. So, to be honest, for the whole day, like almost all games I won 2-0 except for like 2 draws I had. So either I always won 2-0 or I had a draw, and those draws were mostly because I was a bit too greedy, and then I fell into control traps. So in hindsight, of course, I will play the deck again. I think it's the best deck at the moment, like this Dole Rush list. But I cannot really say that I was like genius figuring it out. It was just like, a long process of testing, throwing together cards, liking some, don't liking others, and then just, suddenly I had this list and played it.
Gotcha. So you definitely think that it's still the strongest list going into like the next GP at this point?
To be honest, I don't feel scared of saying this on stream. Most likely I'll be playing the same deck in London again, maybe with some adjustments, and in Spain, that is 1 week later. If I go, I'll just play it again, most likely.
Gotcha.
Unless you really surprise me now this week.
Well, we'll see what happens. So there is obviously GP Minneapolis coming up this weekend, and hopefully we can maybe get this video out before then. But if people wanted to beat your deck, right, like they went into this tournament and forget Lumia, forget Kirik, forget Imul, just Ben's Shahrazad list, Fetty's Shahrazad list is the list to beat. What deck should people be playing? What is like the matchup that's going to spike you the most?
It's actually a really good question. Like, I think if you just, I mean, everything that really hates resonators is good because this deck lives from the 8 resonators and the flip basically. Like, it just lives from the Eva and the Guard Doll. I mean, something really weird would be Mikage. I'm not sure if that works, but Mikage is a famous guy to defeat resonators. The problem is Last Days of a Dragonoid takes away all his counters, so basically your chain ruler becomes useless, whereas your ruler is still kind of okayish. I wouldn't say now that Mikage is a good deck. It's just something that comes to mind if you ask me that question. Maybe you can also play like some weird lock deck, like a mermaid deck, like Shayla deck with Silent Mermaid, where I cannot cast my stuff in your turn anymore, which is actually the idea behind my deck. Because the deck is good because I play a tempo style. That means in your turn, I have 3 open mana. I can just cancel everything you do, right? And if you don't do something scary, I just play a Dole and have more pressure on board. So no matter what happens, unless you cancel it, of course, but most likely at the end of your turn, I'll be better than I was before your turn starts. And that's something we didn't really have before, maybe in the Fox meta, where you just make chimeras, right? And yeah, in general, I like these mid-range tempo decks, you know, or mid-range turbo decks like Fox, or like, I actually liked Pharaoh as well. Like just these decks that really put pressure on board and tell your opponent, now give me something back. And those kind of decks are actually best bet if you just make sure they lose their board dominance, because then they run out of hand cards. So yeah, I think decks that play a lot of removal are obviously in a good position now. Also in the mirror match, you just need removal now. Like you just need to make sure you have more doles than your opponent, or if you play another strategy, you have to make sure he doesn't overrun you with the doles. The big problem is now that cards that do damage are not really that good anymore. But for example, when I played against Kirik, they need 3 of the 500 damage spells to kill the 11/11 dole. You know, it's crazy. It's like these 11 is so much more than 10 in Force of Will, I think. Like it's just so much more effort you have to kill something with 11 attack than something with 10 attack. And so yeah, I think that's a big problem now for damage decks. So I think you need cards that instantly kill creatures, or at least makes it much easier to kill them, like Bear Magic.
It's interesting that you took that approach, because it does make it sound like the deck is almost like Fox. You know, you put down your board and then you're making chimeras at instant speed on your opponent's turn. You know, Griffin's 12/12, so a lot of the multiples of 500 damage removal doesn't take care of things.
I wouldn't go as far as calling it Fox, of course, because Fox is much stronger. But yeah, it's kind of like, I think that's also something that really saved me, like not having tested deck, that it kind of, the pace you play it at is just kind of similar to Fox, and this is why it came really natural to me to play it, because I played Fox so much. So it was really like, yeah, it was very natural for me to play the deck, which came in handy if you don't test it before. And so yeah, I wouldn't say the same stuff works against it like it worked against Fox, obviously, because for example, it's not so much stone dependent or grave dependent and stuff like that. But yeah, still, it's like kind of like you have to prepare for something that puts pressure on your board and does stuff in your turn, and a lot of stuff, which is why I think some cards that make sure, or decks that make sure you don't do too much in their turn, actually makes the deck bad, because then my deck is filled with like a 2/2 drop that I play my turn, you know what I mean, or a 3 drop 11/11 that play my turn. It's just like, still without swiftness, those are not impressive. I mean, you wouldn't run them in any deck outside of Shahrazad, right?
Right.
That's kind of like the thing. Like, I think they are good because you can quick cast them. And for example, Heteroclide Excalibur and other cards that remove not at instant speed, they're useless, or not useless, but they're not that good, because you can just put them in the down in the end phase and go face, right? So that's kind of like the thing. If you can play around this core strategy, like I pass my turn with 3 mana and I either cancel you or put a body on board. If you cancel this, the deck loses its purpose, and that's usually when a deck falls apart.
Alrighty. No, I think that's a very good analysis overall. So, if you remember back when R3 first came out, you made a post in the Forceful US group indicating that you had a ban list in mind that you think should have been implemented instead of just the banning of Otherworld Dreams, right? So you want, not only do you still want Otherworld Dreams still in the game, but you said that you felt that Severing Winds should have been banned instead, which most people, you know, one or the other. But then you also went on to say that you thought that Lorite should have been banned, Lumia should have been banned, and Trueblade should have been banned. So obviously you played Severing Winds and Lorite in your GP winning deck, but you didn't play Lumia. You played a completely different ruler, and then you didn't even play Trueblade at all. So what made you change your mind in this kind of ban list that you had initially, and then do you still believe that this is like where the game should have gone?
No, to be honest, I think I must admit that I wasn't fully accurate in my predictions. Like, as many people, I totally overestimated Lumia. Like, just tutor every turn sounds good, but the thing is, like, killing your tutor and stopping the tutor is not so scary, you know. That's what happened in when I played against Lumia. I just played Separation of Fate on the Resonator. It was a blank card. I block it, it died, and it didn't do anything. It was like, you pay 3 mana for stacking my deck, which is not impressive, right?
Right.
So I think the big problem is I forgot that Lumia is a deck that takes time to build up their game. And so all my aggro decks I played, Freyla, Scarlet, like, I mean, pre-side, of course, you win, but then post-side, you still have a decent chance, right? And so I think there's many ways to beat Lumia. I'm not saying it's a terrible deck. I said that before, like, to be provocative, you know. But I wouldn't run it personally, because just I really don't like it. Maybe a reason why I wanted to see it banned, such as I kind of go around Lumia and don't play it. But no, I don't think Lumia needs a ban at all. No, that's okay. Like, I mean, Imul wrecks the deck, even though Imul has problems herself, and yeah, other than Imul, you can play around it. It's okay. It's just the only reason I would ban Lumia still, like, for example, in a Wanderer for the future maybe, or now, would be because it limits the cards you can print in the future. However, since it's rotating out soon anyway, and we only have like 1 set before that, I don't think they need to do that. Like, unless they bring in some broken enter the battlefield effect. For Trueblade is a card that actually really limits a lot of decks. Like, there's a lot of stuff you cannot play anymore, like Shade, just because it's terrible if you get Truebladed. So that's why Trueblade, I'm still like kind of like, I think this card is in the wrong color. It should be red, and it's kind of like, you know, too dominating. So me and my friends from the White Cross, the Swiss team, we had made a terminology about broken and OP cards. So OP is, a card is OP if the value it generates is too good for what it costs. So basically, from that perspective, you could say Sacred Elf and Tama is OP, but being OP is not bad, right?
Right.
It's not bad for the game per se, but broken is a interaction or a single card that limits the meta too much. For example, Priscia Myth was pretty broken, I think. And like, yeah, other cards like Otherworld Dreams, I can see why it's broken, definitely. Like, the argument is valid. That it was banned is also okay. But for example, Trueblade, basically it is a broken card. I don't say it's like super good, but I'll say it's like there's many cards you cannot play because of this card, right? If you want to ban these things, that's another decision, right? Like, but I think Trueblade is a card that is in some sense a problem for the game, because many cards become unplayable for it. But if it's ban-worthy, this discussion, like, it depends. Like, for example, in Yu-Gi-Oh! I remember they were pretty ban-friendly, like they kept banning stuff. Whereas in Forceful, we rather have a mentality of, we don't want to ban things, right? We want to fix it with the game. So I like this approach more. Like, the worst solution, I think, are errata. Second worst are bans. Third, the best version is get good. But yeah, that doesn't always work, right? So I think Trueblade, I could still say I'm kind of behind that. Lumia is fine, unless there's some super broken list, but I don't believe it isn't that point.
Oh, you'll see. Don't worry. No, I'm probably.
And then, what else was on my list? Lorite. Lorite is a problem. I mean, my definition, or our definition of broken, Lorite is a broken card. He limits decks. Like, he limits stuff you can play. Then again, I mean, Lorite is just like the new Otherworld Dreams. It's like, if I have more Lorites than you, I'm a happy person, right? So, but the concept of having cancel cards in a game kind of brings this with it. Like, I have more than them, I'm happier, right? So, kind of like, banning Otherworld Dreams and not Lorite makes sense, because Lorite doesn't work, for example, on spells or chants. But yeah, it's kind of the same issue. Do you know why the parallel makes sense, right? I mean, Lorite is, I guess, yeah, I would say it's as intrusive for the game like Otherworld Dreams was, which doesn't mean it needs to be banned instantly now, but it's just definitely a card that should be on the radar, because just it limits the cards that we will be able to play. Like in R4, if we have some cool cards, but then we're like, oh wait, people play Lorite, and then you just throw it away, right? That's kind of like my problem. The same with Trueblade. Like, you open your packs, you see a cool card, you realize, oh no, this other card exists in green, and you throw the card away. And that's kind of like, I don't like these cards in the game, because they're like too powerful overall. And yeah, I mean, things would be different if Trueblade was red and Lorite blue. I would be fine with it.
So it's specifically because they're in green that you think that they're oppressive like that?
It's because they're green, yeah, because also Lumia ban was a suggestion because Lumia plays so well with green decks, right? Just because they I'm not like one of those Force of Wind crier people. I don't like that too much. But what I mean is like, the problem is if people play green anyway, that means every card that is good in green will be in every deck. And that means everyone else cannot say, oh, I play Shade now, I take the risk, because most likely you'll just get True Bladed. You know what I mean? Or you, oh, let's play this guy. Maybe they don't play Lowrite. I mean, if you expect it in a GP, you're just going to lose. And that's the thing. Like, if they are in less favored colors, you can say, okay, let's risk it. Let's take the risk and bring this deck that loses to Lowrite, but maybe no one is willing to go into this color, right? And that's why I prefer, like, if broken cards exist, like True Blade and Lowrite by definition, they should be spread across colors, so you can make some kind of gambles.
So one thing I do want to touch on before we go to the next subject here is you're saying that you think True Blade is broken because it makes certain cards or certain archetypes unplayable. As the meta adapts to that, suddenly people are playing 2 to 4 True Blade in their deck, but there are no longer any True Blade targets in the format because people aren't playing it because they're unplayable. So then suddenly you'll see True Blade start to decline in popularity, and then suddenly those cards become relevant again. So is that meta cycle, like, do you find that healthy, or do you think that just shouldn't be something that exists in the first place?
I'm split. I think it's actually a cool thing. Basically, it's a cool thing that, you know, it's this kind of gamble option that you have. Then again, I don't like if a meta is too gambly. So, for example, like with Sacred Elf, which I don't like for other reasons, or with Shades, like just running them now, it's just kind of like, you know, it's always like a coin flip if your opponent plays still True Blade or not, right? So that's why True Blade maybe is like, definitely, I mean, that's obvious. Everyone will know that less ban worthy than Otherworld Dreams Hollow, right? Just because it's more specific, right? So the specificity of a card makes it less ban worthy. Then, yeah, I mean, that's just the thing. Like, I like these meta cycles. I like that people adapt to decks. That's actually what I like about card games in general, that like something comes up, you know, Thesis, Antithesis, Synthesis, and these kind of things. But yeah, I mean, I still at the moment, I wouldn't say any card needs to be banned. I think everything is okay we have. So the company did a great job with that, I have to say that. It's just looking forward. It's just limiting what you can print, or what you can print and it makes sense and people care about it. So that's why, yeah, I would wait a bit to see, because, for example, if you have really cool mechanics in the future and they just break at one card, it's kind of not so funny.
Gotcha. So, still talking about ban lists here, there are 2 cards that I want to talk about that I think are a little bit problematic. One of them you did mention. It's Final Battle and Sacred Elf. So Sacred Elf, obviously, with green being one of the best colors in the game, and every single one of your non-ruler cards on your ban list being a green card, you know, ramping green mana is effectively the best thing you can be doing. And then on top of that, Final Battle, I feel like also kind of falls in your definition of broken, where you can't play decks that want to go wide because Final Battle is so efficient at 1 mana, you know? So Final Battle and Sacred Elf, what are your opinions on those cards? Should they be up for consideration for ban? Are they OP? Are they broken? What do you got?
1 second, I charge my laptop so it doesn't die during the interview.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Let me find my charger. Where's my charger?
I have it, actually. Do you want me to give it to you?
Let me see. There it is. Oh, Jesus. You know, that's preparation and stuff. That's like almost as good as I prepared for my GPs.
I'm about to say, yeah.
So, yeah, Sacred Elf. Sacred Elf, I don't like the card anymore right now. Like, I honestly never understood why people call it broken, like, never. Because you can kill it with Lightning Strike. You can kill it with True Blade. Like, it's killable. You know, it's like, it forces you to play these card maybes, but, I mean, actually, I think Sacred Elf is one of the most okay cards in green. I think they deserve that, because if you just hate green so much now to just throw everything out of green, I mean, that's not really the way to go to kill a color, right? So I believe that basically Sacred Elf is one of the cards that are really well made in green. Basically, I like the idea that green is ramp, for example. I think that's fair that they have something still. At the moment, the problem is they have cancel, and they have cancel for everything, including effects, which actually should be, or abilities, which should be a blue domain. And that's the problem, that they're like, you know, they're doing like imperialist invasions into other colors. But I mean, you can let them have like some stuff. That being said, that's the normative statement. Now, the descriptive statement is in the context of green being strongest color, right? Still, I don't think Sacred Elf needs to be banned. No, like, you can kill it easily. Kirik is a thing now. You have so many cards in there to kill it. You have True Blade. Everyone plays green, so True Blade is easy accessible. So I would not waste my ban vote on Sacred Elf. Final Battle.
Ooh,
Final
let me
battle.
pause you real quick because I do want to just like get some discussion in for Sacred Elf. So one of the things that I think with Sacred Elf is that there is no more efficient way to beat Sacred Elf than the cost it took to play Sacred Elf, right? So there's no way to kill Sacred Elf without expending a card to do it. There's no way to kill Sacred Elf without spending at least 1 mana to do it. So the upside of, like, the absolute worst case for playing a Sacred Elf in your deck, right, is that you play it and then it dies. And your opponent paid 1 mana to do it, and then they also paid 1 card to do it. There is no way to get more value out of that, I guess. So you can't actually really punish people for playing Sacred Elf. Like, the only way they get punished is if they draw multiples and then you drew a True Blade, right?
Yeah, or just want to say, that's actually the reason why True Blade is kind of okay, because it has remnant, right? So you don't make -1. You lose a mana. You invest 1 mana for 1 mana, but you still keep your card, right?
Right.
And the elf is gone. So that's actually a reason why True Blade is actually a kind of okay card. That's true. If you play Lightning Strike on Sacred Elf, yeah, that's a problem. But then again, I mean, I can play Sacred Elf myself, right? So you play Sacred Elf, I play Thunder on it or Lightning Strike. I play my Sacred Elf. I'm ahead now. Now you have to answer me, right? This was kind of like the thing I did in Venice, in Italy. Like, just like, there was my entire deck was about that. Just, I kill your ramp, I ramp faster, I flip faster, yeah, win. So yeah, I mean, that's I totally see your argument in terms of efficiency, but I think that's okay. You don't need to take everything away from green that is good, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah, Sacred Elf will force your opponent to react. But then again, even if you're, I mean, sometimes my opponents in the tournament, they had Sacred Elves on the board and they just ramped, and I didn't ramp. And it didn't matter that much, because if they ramp into a 3-drop, right, and or let's say, what did they play usually? They played like, yeah, let's say they ramp into like Eva, right? And then I play a Ferro spell, right? I still have an answer to your board, right? Even though you have 1 open for your cancel spell, I can see the problematic of that. But I don't think it's bad per se, especially since we have so much discards card now, like Thought Control. I said Thought Control, I mean Thought Control. Yeah. And if you have stuff like that, right, I can take the things out of your hand that you could ramp into with your Sacred Elf. So I think in this context, Sacred Elf is okay because it's very killable. You can use your True Blades on it, and you can rip the hand apart and take the stuff out. And we have so many other cancel spells in the game. So kind of like, I can see why you think it's a problem, but I would really not ban this card.
No, I can agree with that. So final battle.
My big biases, I really like this card. Like, I like cards that are just, like a generic answer for something. At the same time, let me finish first. I don't like cards that are, generic and not stoppable. So that's why I liked Audible Dreams. I really liked it because these counter wars, I like them. I think it's funny. And for Final Battle, it is a great cost you pay for this card, It's not like you just play this card for fun. Like, it costs you a lot. And basically what happened to me in the tournament once was my opponent casts Final Battle for 2k on my board. I play Riula, flip again, right? And this is kind of like, my opponent has wasted life points, basically. Of course, he had to respond to my board, but he just gave me 2,000 damage for free. That I was welcoming that because I want to rush him down, right? And he already had like taken 11 from my big doll, so he was on 9 life. I flip Shahrazad, she's flying 10, and that's the game, right? So Final Battle is again, like, it's a great cost you have to pay for it. And so I like that. Like, it's a high risk, high reward card, right? And if you play around with it with Riula or with Audible Dreams prior, that was my biggest issue why they banned Audible Dreams. I was like, whoa, what about Final Battle? So that's actually the main reason why I was saying ban Severing, not Audible Dreams, because I didn't want to ban Final Battle and Audible Dreams. But now we have Final Battle, now just adapt to it, right? Like, yeah, like I did with my Riula and the Farias summon. Or you can do other things. You have so many discard spells, right? You can just play Nameless Mist if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can play it to steal cards from the hand. Or better, like Thought Control is like a good card again. Like, I think Final Battle is so specific to a situation that it's bad to draw multiples. Usually, it's bad to draw multiples. And yeah, it's like Sacred Elf. That's another thing I forgot to say. If you run 4 Sacred Elf, you're likely to draw 2 of them, and that's what you don't want. You want to see 1, and then it's a really OP card, OP, not broken, but you don't want to see multiples, right? Usually you don't want to see multiples. And that's kind of like the same with Final Battle. You don't want to see 2 Final Battle in your start hand. It's just like, And that's kind of like why I think the card is still okay. and more okay than Low Rider Otherworld Dreams, because Low Rider Otherworld Dreams is actually really okay if you see 2 of them. At least I am usually. If I see 2 of them, I'm like, okay, cool, fine. And that's kind of like, I think, what's the difference between these super broken cards and Final Battle. You take a huge risk playing the card, and at the same time, you have to wait for the right moment to play it, and that means it's very vulnerable to discarding. And yeah, you don't want to see multiples of it. Another thing about Final Battle is, I think it would have been even better if they made the card that you cannot pay stones, you have to pay life points for it. That would have been like a way to balance it. But yeah, even at this point, I mean, I think Final Battle is a fine card. And I know it affects the field hugely, but it also, you can play around it. You can just go aggro first, punch your opponent in the face all the time until the life points are too low to play Final Battle. Again, something I tried out in the tournament, and I just punched them with my 11 or my 10-10 goals. Their life points become low. They have to play Final Battle, right? Because they have to regain the board state. But then the life points drop to such a low number that I can just flip Shahrazad, and then they have to play another Final Battle with all their stones to kill that. And if they don't have enough stones because my tempo is too high, they cannot do that. And then they don't have enough resources to play this card effectively. And yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of think the card is, maybe it's just specific meta we are in right now, because Final Battle is also a way how Shahrazad can actually beat Lumia properly. Like, I think without Final Battle, it would have a big problem to clear their, their advantage boards with all the ramp and all the Tama. So kind of like against Lumia, Final Battle is one legit way to get rid of a board of Tamas and Sacred Outs.
So my counterpoint to this, right, is that I would say that I feel like Final Battle is like what is really pushing like tempo style decks to basically the front of the format, right? Like, I would say the tempo decks are the best decks, and I would say that because when you are the aggressor and you play your 8/8 for 2 mana, as Shahrazad does, and then your 11/11 for 3 mana, you play these big guys, like you're chipping in for damage. And then when you also have access to Final Battle as that deck, you get to play that for 1 mana, you get to wipe their board for paying 2,000 life points, and then you get to continue pushing damage. Now your opponent no longer has that response because they don't have the life total to do it.
Yeah,
so
exactly, yeah.
It just naturally favors tempo decks. And I think this is a much bigger problem in Wanderer. I've been talking to my brother about it a little bit. It was definitely a consideration for ban in Wanderer because the Necrolance decks were already black. They would punch you with Lancelots and then Final Battle you and then punch you with Lancelot. Gwyber decks played Ruler's Memoria. They would punch you with Gwybers and then, oh, I'll pay 24 to get rid of your Gwybers and hit you with Gwyber. But even in the New Frontiers format, like, the best deck, as you're saying, is the Shahrazad deck. And to what degree do you think Final Battle really facilitates that? Even if you don't think it's banned, like, if the deck didn't have Final Battle, like, is that, like, would Shahrazad still be number 1?
Sure, definitely.
You think so?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I just think the thing is, Final Battle is like on both sides. At the same time, it's like the best answer to Shahrazad because her flip gives you 2 bodies and change the board state, like by bouncing 2 things. Like in my version, I don't go for the effigy, I go for the Adam guy or Eve, I think it's called.
Evo, I think, yeah.
Flip, bounce 2 things, have 3 bodies. And if you then don't have, let's say you have an 11-11, you have 2 11-11 dolls on the board, right? You're really doing well. I flip, bounce both things, right? And have my Shahrazad on the board, right? Now your things are bounced. Of course you can flip yours as well, right? But now let's say I low-ride your one of your abilities, right? And then how are you going to come back from this? And Final Battle is just a way to stop the Shahrazad flip. It's like, kind of like, imagine also the Pharaoh meta without Final Battle. You would have no proper way to get rid of him, right? And that's what I kind of think Final Battle is often needed to just, for decks that are going too wide, to just say, no, stop, go back. The big problem, of course, is the go wide decks can play the card themselves, then they play it, wipe your board, and then the white board they have already, then, yeah, it just becomes more and more terrible for you. But then again, I mean, that's just, yeah, we have a tempo meta now, but I think that's not a problem in itself. I'm biased because I really like tempo decks.
Of course you do, yeah.
I mean, I played it in Fox, I played it in Pharaoh, I play it now. I love Final Battle, it's just a really cool card. It's just, I think knowing that your opponent has Final Battle, 2 to 3, you cannot play 4. You don't play 4 unless you have a really good way to heal yourself. Or, like in the Pharaoh meta, you have the card or you lose. Like, then, of course, you play 4, but now you don't play 4. And that's what I kind of like about the card. We play now? Maybe I play 4. Let's think about that. Just because, like, yeah, like, knowing that your opponent has this card really affects how you play the game. Which is, yeah, I know, broken by definition, But then again, it's not like, I think it's not like a big problem, because as I said, you can just go aggro. It motivates you to play faster. And as long as there are enough responses to Final Battle, like discarding it, I think the card is okay. Again, I can totally see, even more now than with Sacred Elf, why you would want this card banned, if you even want it, or maybe you're just playing the devil's
Just talking
advocate.
about discussion here. Yeah, I don't really have an opinion.
But no, I think it's really okay. And to be honest, like a really weak argument, but a kind of legit argument, they're gonna rotate out soon anyway, but
Right.
soonish. So yeah, I wouldn't really ban. Even the Lumia ban was kind of like, I didn't feel happy about that if it would have happened, just because, come on, they're gone soon anyway. So yeah, I think we can just stick around the Final Battle a bit, and then in Wanderer we still have Otherworld Dreams. And I mean, would you agree that almost nothing in Force of Will feels as bad as playing a really expensive Final Battle and then get Otherworld Dreams?
It depends if you have like the 8-drop to cast off of it, but otherwise I would say no. It's one of the worst feelings.
Yeah.
In Force of Will.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, yeah. That's why in Wanderer I think it's okay, because they let Otherworld Dreams in, which was a good decision. And New Frontier it's kind of okay because of Shahrazad. It's kind of like keeps her in check, it keeps Lumia in check, it makes people adapt to it. I don't want to see it reprinted for sure for the next rotation. I don't want that. But I think now this era playing it with Final Battle is fine.
Alrighty.
And Sacred. Yeah.
So last question here. Going to sing your praises a little bit and wrap this up with a personal question. So obviously we got the London GP coming up soon, and you were pretty instrumental in making that happen. You traveled across the ocean to play in Canada when you didn't even have all the cards you thought you needed to play. You're the team captain or team manager of the best team in the world. You have the current world champion. You just won 2 GPs 2 weeks ago. So I would solidly put you guys on top right now. And you've constantly been in contact with Force of Will to help them fix their game as much as you can. So what was it about this game? We kind of talked about it earlier, but is this something that normally happens to you? You find a passion and you just go all in? Or was Force of Will the first thing where you're like, this game is so good, I really need to put more time into it than anything else?
I think it's kind of, to be honest, my personality. I think I'm a try-hard by nature. I was in university, once I have a subject I like, I just go crazy about it. And also if I have a job, that's why I really, just something really personal, that's why I hate detail work if someone gives me a small portion of a job, because I just hate doing it, because it's you do a repetitive work and you can't really explore it. I love these, these projects where you can do a lot of multi-angle work. And in Force of Will, it's so broad, because for the first few months I played, I was just a player, right? And then I realized, wait, there's the game and the community and the company, basically. There's 3 stages, right? And so once I got the game under control, understood the game, I want to get engaged as well with other people, right? Because I really like the communities. Because of my work, I traveled. I lived in Thailand, in China. I lived in Melbourne. I lived in everywhere, right?
Wow.
And so I got to know Force of Will players from all over the world. And in every country I played, luckily there were Force of Will players. That's really good for the game. And so, yeah, I got to know so many people, and so kind of I got really also motivated, to do something for them and to have more people. So also when I was in China, I helped the people a bit, to develop the community. I tried to do my best for it, just because at the same time I help the game and it helps me, because I can talk with more people about one of my greatest hobbies, right? And so yeah, I think Force of Will just deserves it because the community is awesome. Also, I had friends who play Magic. They just come over for Force of Will not GPs sealed, for the pre-release, and they tell me that they really think Force of Will players are amazing, right? And I think that this I don't know why. I don't know why. What it is but even though our card design sometimes is a bit childish, we have a really mature community, and that makes it, that's really cool. And it's also not too huge. You after some months, some GPs, most big names. If you travel a bit, the people, right? And that's just really cool. It's a really cool community. And I think it's much harder in Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! To have this close bonds with people, or with this many people. And so, yeah, so that was how I like the community. I just want to, foster them. For example, when I went to London, I asked, hey, is there Force of Will? They said, no longer, it died. And I was like, what, it died? What does that mean, right? And then, yeah, people just stopped having tournaments. And then I was like, yo, let me organize them. I organized them, and people came back, right? It's so easy, so easy. If you just try and invite people, they come, right? And that's yeah, kind of a thing how I started liking community work. I just realized many people want to play, but not many people do anything. And if you just do a little bit, it's already starting, right? It's just like it's a chain reaction, right? Like they bring their friends and so forth. And just recently, I had a really cool experience in London. We had the first player coming who wasn't a friend of any of us. Like he didn't, like none of us invited him anything. He just showed up, saw it. He's a Magic player. And said, "Hey, can I join?" Right, and we showed him the cards, and now he joined Force of Will, right?
That's really
and
cool.
That's the dynamics. Yeah, that's the dynamics I really love, right? Like just having people, share their hobby. And then the third level is the company, and of course, like the game is dependent on the community, but also, and this is a responsibility. That's why I don't like the game is dead people, because they make it look like the responsibility for the game's health is solely of the company, whereas 50% is of the community. So that's kind of like, you can criticize the company if you want, if it's a respectful and sensible critique, but you cannot act like the company alone is responsible for making a game live, because it just shows you don't understand anything how systems work, right? But yeah, for the company part, like I think it was important before we had Jeff as a global liaison. I just thought it was also important that I just sometimes write them what I think about it, and that's again this thing like with the community. I just don't believe in waiting. I just do stuff, right? Like be the community. I just say, okay, let's do a tournament. If it doesn't work, yeah, fuck having Force of Will in London. It worked, and now we have Force of Will in London, right?
Awesome.
And with the company too, I just wrote them. Let's see if they care, right? And they cared, and they asked me, and then I asked some people for inputs and sent it to them back and forth, right? So that's kind of the thing. Like if you just make a step and just try something, it can work. If you don't try, it will never work, right? So that's kind of like my life philosophy, I would say. And yeah, same with random duel decks. Like 3 AM, you build them, you just give it a try, right?
Right.
I didn't believe I would win. I really didn't, but it worked out in the end. And that's kind of like the same with these company level, with the community level, and the game level. If you don't try it, it will never happen.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ben. I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Any last words for the community out there?
I do. I actually promised my friends at Regal and Chill I would do this in their interview. I forgot, and I can do it now.
All right. Thanks for that, Ben.
Don't thank you for that. I promise to do that.
All right. Well, I do appreciate you having this interview, and thank you very much, everyone. Benjamin B. Bargetzi.
Yes. Bye-bye.